The first time America laid eyes on Victor Wembanyama, we knew he was a star. Even LeBron was quoted saying that he was not a unicorn, but an alien and a generational talent. But what most people don't realize is if Wemby grew up in America, we might not have an alien. And as somebody that played in the same French leagues that he did, I know that firsthand. Americans knew that Wemby was a one of one. I mean, he could have went to any top high school or college in the States, and he would have been playing every minute of every game, breaking all types of single season scoring records, rebound records, block records, winning podies, Sports Illustrated covers. His brand would have been so huge. I mean, we would have been talking about him like he was the next Kareem. But up until the year that he actually got drafted, he was still seen as just a project. While playing for Tony Parker's pro French team, ASVEL, he only averaged 17 minutes a game and even had to play in a lower league just to get the good reps in. In France, they didn't really see him like a Luka Doncic level talent where he could play at the highest level at 17 years old, 18 years old, but it was in that secondary French league where I first heard of him. I happen to be playing in the same division. You would know that if you were subscribed to the channel, but if you're not, please hit that subscribe button right now. I'm bringing you the best stories in basketball told to you from the POV of somebody that lived it. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. But back to Wemby. Wemby was born in 2004 to two professional athlete parents. And I'm gonna stop the story right there because people might be wondering, how did he grow to be 7'6", 7'7"? Who knows how tall he actually is? How do you get to be that height? And the answer is genetic engineering. Wemby's dad was a pro in track and field. Standing at 6'6", he had a lanky frame and tall genes ran in his family. His mom was a 6'3" pro basketball player in France. Height also ran in her family. And then there's something called the middle child theory. You see, Wemby has an older sister who currently plays pro in France, and a younger brother who's just getting his promising career in basketball off the ground. And so I don't know about you guys, but every second child that I know, I'm also a second child, I'm also 6'6". My older brother is only 6 foot. My younger brother is 5'10". And my middle child theory is all the height was saved for the second born child. But being that Wemby was such a tall kid, he would get noticed a lot by scouts in his early years of playing basketball. And even though basketball was in his blood, before he fell in love with basketball, he played soccer and practiced judo. And I think that's a really important piece in his story because there's no real basketball player swag, bravado that you would typically see from a kid, especially in the States, where you grew up around the game, you grew up being really good around the game. You carry yourself with this aura, as the kids call it now, that says, I'm untouchable, right? Like, you kind of have to have that if you want to dominate at young ages. And it seemed like Wemby just kind of skipped that whole process by jumping into basketball at that later stage and already had been experiencing different cultures because every sport has their own culture. At age 10, he was discovered by the Nanterre youth system. And by the way, shout out to the NBA, man. They sent me a very special gift in the mail this week, my very own bedazzled NBA basketball. And that's really a sign that there's gonna be a lot more NBA content on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, hit subscribe. So here's how the pro and youth feeder system works in France, but mainly in Europe in general. Every pro team has to have development teams under them. Some pro teams even have secondary semi-pro teams that compete in more regionalized local tournaments. But the youth systems, like where Wemby was playing with Nanterre, is specifically designed to grow players in the region. And if it's a bigger program, like Nanterre is kind of big, but they pretty much take a lot of Paris kids, and obviously that's where Wemby's from. You pretty much develop the talent in-house. If you're a kid that's really talented and your closest pro club was a small club, you can be poached by bigger clubs because they'll say, I want him to be developed here. We have the bigger infrastructure, we have the better exposure, the better coaches, and they can hand pluck kids from different regions. And so that's where the formative years for Wemby really began. Honestly, I prefer that system to AAU because in AAU, the culture is, and maybe this dates back to LeBron and the decision and Kevin Garnett teaming up with Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, but the AAU system is pretty much a one and done, like a one-stop shop, right? You join a team and you might do one tournament with this team and the next weekend you're doing another tournament with another team and you're getting exposure to different markets. However, you're learning so many different philosophies of basketball. And I think it's harder for a kid to learn the game when they're trying to take what this coach said and then match it with what that coach said, and this coach is an idiot, but this coach is really smart, and you're just trying to balance. And I think for the kid, it just becomes an overload. So you just pretty much rely on what you already bring to the table, which what most kids bring to the table is not necessarily fundamentally sound principles. Whereas overseas, you might have a coach that's only C level, but everything that he knows is going to be implemented within you as a player because you're listening to him every single day. Growing up as a basketball player within the Nanterre system, he was mainly playing espoir. And espoir is pretty much like a college level, high school level league for the French players. So you're assigned to a big club, but you're in the U21 faction of that club. And your U21 competes with the U21 from Bordeaux and the U21 from Calais and the U21 from the south of France. And everybody is just playing in one super league of all the young talent. I happen to know players and played with players that played with Wemby during this time when he was at espoir. And the word on Wemby was he wasn't really known as like the guy. And this is the most mind-boggling thing about Wemby's story. He never really had that big name in France as an established potential surefire NBA player until his last season in France. Not saying that people didn't believe in him, but when you talk to the people that played against him, they tell you like, yeah, he was tall, he grabbed a lot of rebounds, but that respect wasn't all the way on his name as far as I may be playing with the next greatest of all time player. And we'll get into why a little bit later. In 2019, he became the youngest player to play minutes in Euro Cup, if you consider 31 seconds minutes. As I mentioned before, he would spend most of his time in espoir, where he only averaged 10.2 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, and 3.3 assists. In the next season, 2020 to 2021, he would split time with another French club that competed in a lower league, and that's where our paths kind of overlapped. You see, while he was playing at INSEP, which is almost like a sports boot camp slash boarding school, the closest thing I can say to the American culture is prep school, but that's where he would spend a lot of his time when he wasn't playing in the top division. And I remember the buzz of him coming down like it was yesterday. To be honest, I never really knew who he was until he had his first game within this league, because I had just came to the league from Spain. Before this, I played 2 seasons in Spain, 1 season in the UK, and 1 season in Argentina. So when you first come into the French leagues, they kind of want you to prove yourself. So I'm at a club that's not a big club. The league is not the top league. And I hear about this kid who is 7'6", and they were saying he had a triple-double. Now, a 7'6" kid is all I needed to hear. That caught my attention. Then I watched the tape, and everything made sense. I saw the first glimpse of what the world sees now. 7'6", skinny as a rail. You'd think that guys were just bodying him, because in this league in France, it's a super physical league. Like, you got grown men bodies, right? And at the time, this kid was like 15, 16 years old, banging with the grown dudes. He had 10 blocks, I believe. I want to say he had 30, 10, and 10 with blocks, rebounds and blocks. But the fact that I never had heard who he was before that, I think that's the story. Weeks later, it was the international window, and Rudy Gobert just happened to be in town visiting his French compadre who had been making a name for himself. They work out together and later engage in a one-on-one that went viral. I remember seeing the clip on ESPN or House of Highlights, one of those pages, and just thinking like, that's the kid that had the triple-double in his first game in this league. Who is this dude? Like, just imagine my curiosity around this anomaly. I had never seen anything like this. 7'6" and had a bag. The next season, he signed a 3-year deal to play in Tony Parker's club, ASVEL. When we think about Tony Parker, we think of he was a good player for Greg Popovich, a part of Tim Duncan's dynasty, right? Maybe the Robin to his Batman. But in France, Tony Parker is like Michael Jordan. Imagine a country where you ask the average person, who's the best basketball player of all time? And they will say Tony Parker. That is what he means to France. So when he buys into a club like ASVEL, located in his hometown of Lyon, and they happen to have the biggest budget in the country at the time, so it was a no-brainer for Victor Wembanyama. That seemed to be the next logical step. Elevate your game and level up. That was supposed to be the jump he made, but this is the French system that we're talking about. In France, they don't just give young players opportunities. If Luka Doncic didn't play in Real Madrid, if he signed to play in Monaco, he might not have been the big time EuroLeague player that he ended up being, because the French want you to do things their way. That's the one country that I played in where I found that the young players on every team that I was on weren't ambitious enough. Like, they weren't go-getters. They were more so okay with what the coach tells them is okay. You're not a scorer. Okay. You get in the game, you be passing, grabbing rebounds, but you see them work out or you play one-on-one with those same players and you're like, yo, dude, you're a scorer. The coach would tell the young players, just work on your catch and shoot. Okay. Every day they just catch and shoot, catch and shoot, catch and shoot. There were so many players that I said, why do you guys think that French players sign Americans? Oh, you guys are very talented. Yeah, they're telling you guys to play the fundamentally sound French way, and they're signing the American guys to do the things that they're telling you guys not to do. So what if you guys, who already have job security, just happen to say, you know what, I want to play like an American? You're going to stand out so much further, and you're going to just have so much value in your game by not listening. But the French way is you got to listen to coach. You got to listen. Wemby, you're going to come in, you're going to play 15 minutes a game. Okay, coach, I don't want you to average 15, 20 points, even though you probably could. If we give you the ball every possession, you could probably average 20, but I want you to average 6. Okay, coach. And that's the way it went. Don't get me wrong. Wemby had big moments, like that 25-point Pro A performance. Pro A was the name of their top division at the time. Now it goes by BetClick. Or that 18-point EuroLeague career high that he had. But with the number of injuries that he had and inconsistent pro minutes, we always felt like we were only getting a fraction of what he actually can do. ASVEL went on to win the French league that year. Wemby went on to average 9.4 points per game in league play and 6.5 points per game with 3.8 rebounds in the EuroLeague. How is it possible that Victor Wembanyama can average 3.8 rebounds over the course of a season? After the season, Tony Parker made a promise to build a team around Wemby, but Wemby wasn't really having it. He had other plans in his sights, so he opted out at the end of the season. Now, there's a rumor going around France saying that the reason why Wemby didn't want to opt in to the rest of his ASVEL contract was because the rigors of the EuroLeague schedule was too much, and with him going down with all the injuries, allegedly he wanted to take time off of the EuroLeague and reinvest that time into his body. Now, we see Wemby doing all types of unique stretches and meditation practices, and that was something that he believed in and had the foresight to indulge in early on in his pro career. The next season in 2022, he signed a 2-year deal to play with Metropolitans 92 in his hometown Paris. The head coach, Vincent Collet, rate my accent for me in the comments, had a reputation of letting the young guys hoop. He found out quickly how much they were going to let him have the keys and the green light when the team traveled to the US to play an exhibition game against the G League Ignite and the projected number 2 pick at the time, Scoot Henderson. That was a nationally televised game that featured over 200 NBA scouts. Everybody who was somebody in the basketball world was at that game or watching it. So the pressure was on because this was Wemby's first time playing in the States. In his first game, he recorded 37 points, 5 blocks, and 4 rebounds. And more importantly, he just showed that he had what it took to be the big time player that everybody thought he would be. In his second game, he scored 36 points, grabbing 11 rebounds. And it was after that game that the NBA had seen enough. They announced that they would be broadcasting every one of his regular season for the rest of that year. He went on to dominate the French Pro League. It seemed like every game he had a moment. We were gonna see things that we had never seen before, but still the hype felt pretty tame. When Wemby and his team left America, they left an impact. They left a void. There was a true buzz around his name. Who is this unicorn that just came into America, dominated who we thought was the best American heading into the next year's draft? It was clear that he was something special and he needed to be celebrated. But back home for Wemby, it just wasn't like that. The French way is very particular. It's hard to feel like an actual celebrity in France, especially when you're a younger player that really hadn't accomplished much. So while in the States, that's applauded, right? You're McDonald's All-American and you're going on late night talk shows and you're having ESPN features. You don't really see see it like that in France. I think that he didn't really know how good he was because he's a product of that way of thinking. And to be honest, that kind of helped him out when it came to basketball because he was able to just focus on his game. His story tells a tale of how to ensure that a prospect that you have all the hope for, all the potential, all the promise, how to ensure that he pans out to reach his full potential. Like, just think about how different it would be if he was raised in Dallas or Los Angeles instead of Paris. After a regular season of dominance where he won MVP of the league, averaged 21 points, 10.4 rebounds, and 3.1 blocks per game, which all led the league, by the way, he carried his team to the Pro A Finals, where he ran into and got dominated by Mike James and Monaco. But I think making it to the finals was a good enough feat, and here's why. Let me tell you the level of organization that Wemby was dealing with without being disrespectful and throwing shots. This is not a shot at Met 92, but the year that he played there, they had the biggest star in French basketball, a man that was gonna go on and for sure be a billionaire, right? Because let's face it, that's where he's headed. The very next season, Met 92 had to cancel games in their regular season schedule because they didn't have a gym to hoop at. That team was I'm gonna be respectful, but it was not pretty. So to bring a team like that, with no real history of winning championships, no real big championship culture, to bring them to the finals in your one and only year on the team, that's a super impressive feat for somebody that's not even 19 years old yet. Wemby had already shown enough, and after that season, it was clear that he was taking his talents to the NBA draft. Overseas rooks are not normal rooks. Here's why. You shouldn't be surprised when you see guys like Jokic and Doncic come to America and have immediate success because they've been playing a pro game with pro conditions for many years. Think about it like this. Luka Doncic got drafted at age 19. He was playing pro for Real Madrid, one of the biggest basketball clubs in the world, at 16 years old. So the adjustments that a normal college kid or G League kid would have to go through, Luka went through that at 16. But on June 22nd, 2023, Wemby became the first French player to be selected first overall in the NBA draft. He was drafted by none other than the San Antonio Spurs. And there's that Tony Parker connection again. Prior to the draft, he was rated by Woj, ESPN, and many other analysts as the best prospect of all time. That's a lot of pressure for an 18-year-old. In his first summer league game, he laid an egg. He put up 9 points on 2 of 13 from the field and only grabbing 8 rebounds in front of a sold-out, star-studded Vegas arena, who all came out to see what was billed as the alien. And I think there was a lot of culture shock there. Don't get me wrong, every now and then in French basketball, you'll have a rapper come courtside. You'll get a booba at a French basketball game. But basketball is seen as second fiddle by a long shot to soccer, or what they call football, and even sports like handball sometimes. So he might not have been used to consistently having to perform in front of your favorite rapper, but he got used to it quick because the very next game he put up 27 points and 12 rebounds, and it was there where the alien was truly born. Nowadays, when you think about Wemby, you think about how he may be the biggest basketball cheat code. The surefire prospect that actually hit and really didn't miss a step. Defensively, he came into the league finishing second as a defensive player of the year to Rudy Gobert as a rookie. He led the league in blocks that year, but also offensively, having a bag that we've really never seen before. Through his first 100 games in the National Basketball Association, he has more points than LeBron, more threes than both Steph and Clay, more blocks than Shaq, and more rebounds than Kevin Garnett. I mean, come on now. All while showing the Kobe, Jordan, and LeBron trait, that innate thirst for self-improvement, wanting to be better at everything they do, mainly basketball. This past summer, he was seen training with both Monks and Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, what kind of a sicko does both in one summer? What motivates him to be a winner and to have pride in what he's doing? I think he would have been successful at anything he chose to do. He treats basketball like a job, unlike Americans and how we're brought up to think ball is life. You see his mentality in a lot of other European prospects as they come over. Think about Luka and Jokic in the offseason. Jokic is back on the farm in Sombor, Serbia, and Luka is somewhere hanging out in Ljubljana. But when it's time to hoop, they're all in. It's fine to treat basketball like a job. Just be good at your job, and they are. But for Wemby, the only thing more important than winning a Larry O'Brien trophy, which I have had the pleasure to shoot with before, is winning gold for his country. That's something that I think he is closer to than we all think.